All right, and we're live. Welcome everybody to another edition of Deconversion Stories, except today it's going to be a little bit different. My friend David here of DR Podcast, which you guys probably know. If you don't, there's a link to his channel in the description below. David was never really a believer, but as you mentioned, as we were just quickly chatting before this, that you kind of had things at arm's length and whatnot, but you sort of had dabblings in it, and you've obviously had to deal with others that are believers. So let's talk a little bit about like your family. Were they ever into it at all, or tried to get you into it? Is anything like that?
Sure thing. I think one of the earliest memories I have was of an interaction between my uncle and my grandma on my mother's side, where I was at their house, at grandma's house, probably for I don't know, Christmas or something like that, some holiday, and we were downstairs in the living room. I remember it very clearly. In the doorway, my uncle saying the distinct words, "But Mum, I'm not Christian," and that was. I mean, bear in mind, he was about probably in his 30s. That he still sounded like a kid, and obviously I'm remembering wrong, because I'm like, I would have been single digits at the time, but old enough to know what it was and then understand. Like my grandma would have definitely have considered herself Christian. She never, I don't think she ever enforced anything. See, Anglican churches and Church of England are typically very mild anyway. And then there's other little bits. Maybe when my I think when my nan died, and we were like in the bit afterwards where we were in the church, and my uncle sort of very awkwardly sort of like got up, and it was the bit where the vicar says, "Oh, if you want to go to the front and pray or whatever, like now's the time." And so he was just sort of like looking around at us, and it was like my dad had said out loud things like load of old shit, or like something like that. And yeah, it's always been, as far as I'm aware, from a family perspective, it's always been challenged, but it's never been not in a Dawkins sort of way, but it's not like our sort of way. But yeah, I from a family perspective, it's definitely been not enforced, as it were.
Right. So I guess you never really went to church like at all, like even with your grandma once or twice or something like that?
No. So no, my grandma would have. She used to live in Cornwall, so that's for the people who don't know and don't recognise my accent. That's the leftmost tip. It's like the foot facing America on the UK. That bit's Cornwall. That bottom bit on the west, with Wales just above it, and we live. We lived West London, and now we're just slightly outside London. So no, it wouldn't have been enforced. I think that might partially be down to parents' work habits as well. I always had one parent at home. There was never two, and there was never none. So my dad did like day shifts, night shifts, still does 12-hour shifts and that sort of thing.
Wow.
And so the other parent would do the sort of the other work at during the day, or the other person would pick me up from school or whatever. So I guess there wouldn't have ever been time to, even if they wanted to.
Right.
Religion's a very sort of hands-off affair in the UK. I mean, we are, of course, majority atheist now. So
yeah, that's true too. Yeah, good for you.
I don't know what it's like in Canada. I don't know what it's like in Canada.
It's, I would say, mostly, I wouldn't say irreligious, but I would say secularish. But there are groups all over the place that still carry their religion around, on their sleeves and stuff like that. So we have to deal with some fundamentalists once in a while here, but it's not as often as our neighbors to the south, where they're constantly dealing with that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, other than that, it's pretty easy going up here when it comes to that. Right. Just like the US, though, we do have freedom of religion and freedom from religion here too. So that's a good thing, I suppose. So did you ever, how about any, like your friends, like growing up in school, shit like that, were any of them ever trying to convert you or get you to come with them or anything like that?
I've never, from memory at least, I've never had somebody try to convert me to anything. I don't think so. Maybe something along the lines it might have happened, but it would have been quickly dismissed, and it would have been I would have been a timid child anyway. But definitely in school, I went because I was in West London, in Hayes, and Hayes is was described by my granddad as Little India, which is mild casual racism.
Well, I don't know if I would say that would be considered like a racist, because you have those kinds of cities that you've got Little India here, we've got Little China, we've got areas where they tend to, I guess, all have moved and lived together, and that's just the nicknames, I guess, for the areas that they live in or something.
Well, before you start defending him, I don't think they actually were Indian.
Oh.
I think there was quite a few like Pakistani as well, and it was like a mix. There was a lot of Sikh, a lot of Muslim, and there is that sort of, from that generational side, there is that complaint that there's too many black faces, and that sort of like rhetoric coming from that generation. So he was definitely that sort of granddad. But no, I definitely.
So that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't actually answer the question. The school friends would have been a mix in that case. So I know there was, I think there was a girl called Aisha, who was definitely Muslim and would have, I think I remember her wearing the headscarf as a child. Yeah, I don't know whether, it's because it's the niqab is the full body one with just the eyes. I think that's the niqab. I'm not sure. Somebody fact check it. Yeah.
There's burqa and niqab, and they're all different levels of covering. So
yeah, I think there's definitely some Christian. Like I can probably not articulate it. There's like this very stereotypical leaning to sort of right wing. If I said Tommy Robinson, would you know who I'm talking about?
It rings a bell, but you might have to refresh me a little more.
Yeah, okay. So he's a particularly controversial individual who leans towards the right. He grew up in Luton, which is sort of North London. And he's a particular personality at the minute who started a group called the EDL, the English Defence League. And some of his points on Islam are true, and there's certain things that are being brought up within the community within Luton and different communities like it, like Birmingham, where there has been an influx of Muslims, and it feels from their life's perspective like the entire country is being taken over. So that's where Islamophobic opinions and demonstrations come in. He's now left that organization and he's done some dodgy things, but he's like this typical white straight male who sort of might appeal, like might like Jordan Peterson sort of audience kind of person who has these particular Christian views. So yeah, think of somebody who would be in a Jordan Peterson audience, but slightly more offensive, and that's the sort of people that I now know I was in school with. That makes sense.
Yeah,
like I can see them as kids, and I know that they've now grown up and become that generation of people who would follow Tommy Robinson or whoever it may be. So,
right, or someone like
religion and that question's always been there.
Awesome. Speaking of Islamophobia, what are your views on how there seems to be a growing number of Muslims in the UK? Is it like over across the pond here, we get little news bits from our perspective, it almost looks like you guys might be in trouble a little bit. Like, is there anything that's like, do you guys feel that way? Like, is there going to be like some kind of an attempt to enforce some Sharia law in certain areas of England, or?
You can see certain things. So certain posts that somebody like Tommy Robinson would put out, it would be very provocative. Like there are videos of people like him, like in when Trump quoted Britain First, the group on Twitter, and they retweeted a few of their like Islamophobic videos. Those videos from a group called Britain First are they're staged. They're basically they're out to provoke people, and then they quickly turn on their camera and say, "Oh, look, we've just sitting in our car, and these Muslims have come up to us and started abusing us." But they didn't film the bit before, and there's other footage of the full, so you can see the full video, and it's like, oh, because there's been documentaries done by proper journalists into those sorts of people. So there are people trying to rile up like that sort of sentiment, definitely from a political perspective, and it's worked. We're moving slightly to the right, and it's concerning, and it's I would say has played a huge role in Brexit.
Really interesting. So I'm assuming then that most of the Muslims there just generally keep to themselves until they're provoked into doing something like that, and then being caught on film. I mean, you're going to have radical groups, obviously, but they're going to be everywhere globally. But for the most part, I mean, it seems like they probably just keep to themselves.
There's actually another person from Luton called Stacey Dooley, who's a journalist, and she's done some very good documentaries on like abuse against women and Islam and like drugs and sort of lots of different types of documentaries for the BBC. And so she's done one where she goes to different places where you would expect, say, if there's an influx of a particular type of person from a particular country, you want to stick around people that you know and what is familiar to you. So we've got 1 million Britons in Spain that have all made like Little England, as it were, in Spain, and we're in our own little ghetto, and they're the same sort of people that say here, oh, why are all the people in a ghetto in Birmingham? Well, for one, it's not a ghetto, and two, it's because they want to be around people that are familiar. They want to know, be around people who speak their language, and they want to be around people who provide home comforts of food, and they have shops already set up and that sort of thing. So she went into Luton, and there are people going through different parts of the country where they are staging very, very small protests, and they do want Sharia law, but they're definitely the minority, and they're being made out to be the majority. So just to finish this answer, there was some polling done not too long ago where people were asked how many, like what's the percentage of Muslims you think make up the UK population? and I think it's somewhere between 3 to 5%. But the polls came back, and people thought it was well over 10%.
Wow, really?
Now, why is that? Yeah, I don't know the exact number from memory, but why do people think that? Why do people think there's a huge swathe of Muslims that have come to this country? And importantly, and very interestingly, why do they think that leaving the EU, which is a majority white country, place, do they think that that's going to change anything?
Oh, it won't, but some of them might believe that it would.
Maybe. It's very interesting to try and find the links. I'm trying. I always try and be as factual as I can. I don't want to misspeak if somebody's, if somebody's throwing something down in the comments. It's difficult to sort of look at both, answer the question and look at the comments. But if anyone thinks I'm bullshitting, then yeah, I got them up. I think I might have got something. I think I was being corrected earlier for my comments on the Anglican Church. So at least that was my perspective from the outside. They've always been very sort of lovely, and I could I could carry on talking forever, because there are, as I've probably mentioned to you before, because we've already done a podcast on my channel, and
yes,
I think it might have been yours, or some point in January, around the time we did it, I was talking to somebody on the podcast that said, I was pointing out the sort of vicars we have, like not celebrity vicars, but the well-known ones. So we have ones like Reverend Richard Coles, who is somebody who was part of a band in the 80s, is openly gay, and is somebody who's sort of like a TV personality on QI and things like that. He's very funny, he's very witty, and they often make fun of the fundamentalists, even in America. Like they realize, they get it, like they understand how absurd people sound when they say the earth is 6,000 years old.
Right. Good. At least
and so yeah, at least some of them some of them get it.
I'll never understand how anyone could actually think that, but I guess industrial strength indoctrination can do that to people, and they just get complete denial of what we've discovered. So
it's a huge business.
Oh, yeah.
Far too much money in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, agreed. Yeah, religion makes money hand over fist.
And the fact they're tax exempt sort of grates,
many people. It grates a lot of us. I mean, that's got to change at some point. However, I think it's going to be a while before we see any kind of change like that, unfortunately.
It's like the slow grind on YouTube. It's going to take time, and then the dominoes will eventually fall. But it's the first bit that's the most difficult.
Well, you're closing in on 200, getting there, which would be pretty good.
Getting there. I mean, you're very close to 300.
Yeah, I'm less than 20, I think, now.
I think we've both gained about 100 since we last spoke.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Which is awesome, really. I mean, for me, you know what? If these conversations are heard by my friends at most, and other people that I point to these conversations, if they're interested, that's really all I care about. I mean, I'd like to have more people see some of these or listen to these conversations, at least, if they're people that are, thinking about or their beliefs or doubting their beliefs, because these conversations could help them. But I don't expect miracles because they aren't real. But in the colloquial sense, I don't really, whatever happens, happens, man. Let's just go with the flow. And I'll continue to put these things out every 3 times a week or whatever, and don't have somebody scheduled or on one of the days, because sometimes I can't fill spots. People just don't have or can't be available or whatever, right? It happens. But
Yeah.
I try and fill as many of these dates as I can.
Yeah, it would be quite hard, especially when you're in the transition between, like, it's all perfectly good when you start and you can just do it whenever and there's no rules and it's fine. And then there's a certain expectation as soon as you get to maybe like a Cyrus who I've just spoken to a few hours ago, Cyrus the Skeptic, or a Shannon Q kind of size where you get into 10,000. Then there's almost an expectation to be weekly, like you have to be on the dot, like Iwan's doing his Friday night weekly binge, kind of that sort of thing where it's just on the dot every Friday. Like, I'm not sure I could do that, even if I wanted to, even if I could, you know, especially when YouTube isn't paying for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually were making some money doing this, it might be a little bit easier or different to actually commit to doing these more often. Regardless of that, I'm still going to stick to the schedule that I've created for these shows as much as I possibly can.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth doing for the sake of doing. Like even if the end product was like just convincing one person to think more rationally, you know, there's a victory in that.
Reese has a couple of questions for you.
Go for
it. One of them was any drug abuse in the Muslim communities around you. And is it true that they hate dogs or pets in general, even though Muhammad had a pet cat? How do we know Muhammad had a pet cat? I didn't know
that. We have to work out whether Muhammad's real first.
Yeah, exactly.
So I should explain I can explain from a political perspective much better than anything else where I am. So at the minute, I live in a place called in the constituency of Wokingham, and Wokingham is John Redwood's constituency. And John Redwood is one of the prominent Brexiteers. He actually ran for a Conservative leader, and if he won that election, which he didn't in the 90s, then he would have become Prime Minister. So I'm in a very affluent, predominantly white area, but Hayes was a predominantly black area. And so seeing as I only lived in Hayes for 10 years and now I've been here for 15, so I don't know if I can answer the question accurately, especially the one about the dogs. What was the first one?
Drug abuse problems within Muslim communities.
You know what? I have no reason to believe it's any more prominent than any other community. If anything, if it were to do with drug abuse being cocaine, heroin, that sort of thing, Class A drugs, then I would say it's more to do with middle class. I'll go out on a limb and say it's more to do with the people who have got the money to do it, and it's not going to be the uber rich, and it's not going to be the poorest. I think it would be more middle class, and I don't know whether there's a majority for Muslim being more working class or whether they're more middle class. I think if you were to assume, and it's a big assumption, that the Muslims would be immigrants and immigrants would be working class if they would come in at that level, I think they would. I think it would make more sense if we were having. I'm trying to work this out in my head. If you had skilled labor, only skilled labor, like the most skilled people coming in to the country, they would already go into middle class jobs straight away. So maybe there is. I don't know whether there's something in that. It's not something I'm aware of, but it'd be very interesting to know if that's a specific problem. I know there was I know there was and it has been an issue in Rotherham to do with grooming gangs. This goes back to what Tommy Robinson was saying, and he is right mostly. on this specific issue, because there was a big cover up of the grooming gangs that were going on more further north than me. But there was a huge Muslim, I think I'm right in saying Pakistani, sort of influence within like a very well organized grooming gang that went ignored by police because they feared being accused of Islamophobia for a number of years. Like it's very serious sort of issue. People just Google it. They'll get more facts from Google than me.
Yeah. Well, depends on how you use Google. You can find all of any facts that you want. Facts that you want
all the good
Google.
All the good fake facts.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Pine Snake says that they're from Bradford, and it's predominantly a Muslim area.
Yeah. Bradford would be. I think they've got quite a good MP in Bradford. I've forgotten their name, but yeah, definitely, it's that sort of community. Yeah,
right.
Confirmed.
Hey, Ocean, we see you lurking in the background.
No, we don't.
Welcome to the show. Yeah. Well, he is a wizard, right? So he can just make himself with one of them invisibility cloaks or some shit.
Christy's in. Yay, Christy.
Yeah, Christy's been here almost from the get-go.
All right.
She's a trooper.
Of course she was. He's here to see her favorite Canadian.
Wait, oh, well, yeah, I suppose so, yeah. I guess that would be me. Poof. Ocean, does that mean you're disappearing, or does that mean you poofed into the chat? I don't know. I don't know where the hell I'm going with this. Well, anyway, no one can see me. Well, now he's like, what's his name? Cena. You can't see me.
You join us for the after show.
Oh, he might. He pops in from time to time. He's a super cool guy, man. So it's always a pleasure to have him in there.
Wasn't Ocean, if I remember from the Deconversions, wasn't he pagan? Is that right? Who am I thinking of?
That's correct. You are correct.
He's Ocean.
Yeah, pantheist. Or sorry, polytheist, pantheist.
Poly.
He believes in the sacred frying pan. I don't know what it's like I said. Sometimes shit blurts out and I have no control. Oh, great. Non-sex starting.
Never mind.
Oh, mainly because I don't have a camera on me. Polytheist, yo. Yeah. That's what I meant. It just came out the wrong way.
So, as far as I can work out, because I'm still sort of very refreshingly ignorant of certain types of religion. So pagan was the original owners of Christmas. Then Christians stole that idea. As far as I know, and then
depending on the pagans, right?
So
there are different kinds of pagans.
Yeah, because it's just pagan is a religious person who is just not affiliated to, is it Christianity or the main religions?
Pagans have been around well before any of the established main religions. I mean, if you consider the Romans probably would have considered Christians as pagans because they didn't believe in their specific belief system, or they called them atheists, actually. Right? So paganism is a broad term. It can cover anything from Druids to Wiccans to any kind of system like that.
I mean, we do have the spiritual home of I think it's the Druids at Stonehenge.
Christians are atheists. He says Christians are atheists. Yes. That's beautiful. Yes, those Christian atheist bastards. Now, if we use the term atheist as we would use, because I think you can isn't it? No, monotheist? No, I don't know. I have no idea where I'm going with this.
So yeah, mono is just one tone. So if you're speaking monotone, it's just one tone constantly, just talking at this tone. Whereas it's actually not very far off my actual voice. So yeah, mono is one. So monotheist is someone who believes in one God.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I believe you can be atonal as well, meaning you can carry a tune if it had a handle on it. Omnitheist. There you go. Believing in all the gods. Hi, Sassy. Welcome to the show. Did you ever get into any of the, speaking of paganism, did you ever get into any of those kinds of belief systems at all? Like, did you ever try to practice magic or anything like that?
You know what? This would be probably the most boring non-deconversion podcast you've ever done. I think
that's what they all say.
Nothing. I think it might come across as refreshing. You never know. I think, yeah. As I just said, the only view I had was of I think it's the Druids at Stonehenge. So any particular fringe view of that particular group has always been exactly that. They've been a fringe. They've been a bit weird. Like they've been like uncomfortably sort of cringeworthy to never feel like joining for any reason. There was no need. Like there was. I don't speak for everybody, but it certainly appears to be the same experience that you get if you're, say, I was speaking to Cosmic Skeptic Alex O'Connor about this, and he's gone through the same thing as me. We've never been religious. We've never been tempted. We've always had, like, excuse me, maybe there was the odd school trip to the church, the odd funeral, the odd wedding, but yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because churches are just places where you go to get married and die.
Yeah, exactly. It was the same with the synagogues that I used to go to as a kid. Every time I sat in there being forced to go by my parents, I literally was dying while I was sitting there, just of boredom. So, but when you're a kid, you don't want to be at a fucking church or a synagogue or a mosque for that matter. You want to be out somewhere kicking a ball around or beating up on some pretty girl on the playground so she pays attention to you. That's what we used to do when I was a kid. You always picked on the ones you were always interested in, right? You start pushing them around, and then that's how they knew. And then you were nice to them once they caught on to it.
Yeah, I've been far too shy to have done that.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It used to work for me. I accidentally hurt a girl one time. I was like 7 or 8 or something, or maybe a little bit older. And we were at the playground, and I accidentally pushed her right off of the swing, and she hurt herself. I think she got loosened one of her teeth, and her dad gave me shit. Holy cow. He's throwing rocks at me and stuff, and I'm running away. It was just like, holy fuck, man. It's like, oh, dude, what are you doing? It's my daughter. I'm like, holy shit, man. I like your daughter. She's pretty. And I was running away. And anyway. Oh, and for the record, Ocean, you're not boring. You're far from boring. Because he said, I wouldn't manage to make him be not boring. You did it all by yourself, man. You're an interesting guy. So,
in the interest of BBC balance, you are very boring.
I'm the boring one. Well, maybe not.
Oh, I meant Ocean.
Oh, Ocean.
You.
I'm the high priest of what? Patriarchy? Yeah, I'm the high priest of patriarchy. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, so if I punch a girl in the face, it means I like her. He writes it down. No, dude, it just seemed to be the thing when I was a kid. You always you made fun of or picked on the girls that you liked so that they would pay attention to you, and then eventually you get through that part, and then hands and and smoochies and stuff like that. So that's just the way it seemed to work when I was a kid. But that was back in the fucking 70s, so. Right, we still wore bell bottoms at that time, so you heard it here, folks. I'm not giving any advice here, people, so don't take me as an advice giver in this respect. I don't want you to start going around slapping people just because you like them. All right, it's not a good idea, especially today. Oh wow! So
what was I going to say? Oh no, that's what I was going to say. Sorry, to interrupt. Because somebody mentioned patriarchy, and then that made me think of monarchy. And obviously, we both share a queen.
yeah.
And I don't know what your particular views are. This is turning into my podcast now.
It's weird how we did that. The switcheroo going on. You're going to have to mirror this on your channel now. My opinion of the Queen is I seriously, I don't think monarchies are necessary at all anymore. So, but I like her. I think she's cool.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. She understands the trend towards, like, whether it be the very start of her reign, when it was obviously through the tragedy through the death of her father.
Oh my God! Now that song's going through my head now, David. Thank you very much. Tragedy.
They were UK. Yeah,
just
another
the Gibbs.
export.
Yeah. Well, that was a solo act with what's his name? One of the Gibbs. Andy Gibb, I think.
What was I going to say? Oh, the monarchy. Sorry, yeah, the monarchy knew. As soon as
yes, you're the Queen, Sassy.
Queen. Oh, Sassy's definitely.
Sassy's awesome. And she says I'm a hippie. I'm not a hippie. I bathe. I don't walk around wearing patchouli so people can't actually smell my BO. All right, so.
What was I going to say? Sorry, the Queen.
I don't know.
We're talking about the Queen, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, yes, the Queen. So, because she lost of the empire after the war, her entire reign has essentially been just stopping the dam from falling. I mean, every country's been and gone from the empire, but we're still connected through the Commonwealth, and it's just trying to repackage and rebrand what we already had. So even down to 5 years ago, when we had a Scottish independence referendum, maybe we'll have another one in a few years after Brexit. Who knows? But I think, yeah, she definitely is the epitome of somebody who knows how to survive, both in terms of the fact she's 92 or whatever, and the fact that her reign, particularly as the head of the Church of England, seems to have softened. Like, it's not enforced. She's adapting to the times, and they're evolving with science. I think she's 92.
Wow, that's amazing. That blue blood, I guess. My aunt just turned 87 yesterday, so that's pretty good too, considering she was an ex-smoker too.
Yeah, my the granddad I was talking about, my other granddad I never knew, but that granddad I was talking about lived till he was 90, and he used to smoke 40 a day when he was when my dad was a kid. So yeah, it can happen. Very odd how that happens. I mean,
it depends on where you live too. If you're in a less industrialized area, your air is probably a little bit better, so that might help. Because I think that was the case for my friend's grandmother, who, until she was 94, I think she would literally not jog, but jaunt down to her local pub every night to have her cigarettes and her sherry and a pint of Guinness or whatever. Every single day she went through this routine, and she lived to be like 98 or something before she passed away. So that's pretty good.
Wow, that's pretty
but
good.
She lived way out in the bush, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
if it's in you, you got it, and then you got it.
I mean, the Queen looks remarkably well. She's still as fit and functioning as she was 20 years ago.
And I think she's
as
still
far as
got
I
that
could see.
great sense of humor too.
Oh yeah.
I've always thought she had a great sense of humor.
She's extremely she's extremely likable, as are certain factions of, say, when you look at William and you think, oh, he's definitely sort of almost professional enough to be king one day, and then you've got Harry, who's sort of like the cheeky, relatable one, and the fact that through, and you can go into conspiracy theories if you want, however which way Diana was killed, they're the subject of sort of the tragic circumstances, and you can empathize with that, and you feel sorry for these kids who have, like, I think they've found happiness. They seem very happy. They're starting their families now, and they're very their perception is changed, particularly from when I was a kid, and you could see images of Harry dressed as a Nazi at some party, and it was hilarious, and everybody would laugh about it. And now it's sort of very
he did it as a joke. So
yeah. Oh yeah, I particularly think if you're going into a slightly off topic, which happens a lot with me.
That's okay. These conversations can go any direction.
You know this from the podcast. I think the current spate, whatever the word is, of the outrage culture that we're currently in, just to assume the worst in everyone, the things that I hear from particularly America, where there's certain elected people, I don't know, they're all from the same state, and they're all in blackface from when they were in college, and everyone's being outraged now, and it's like, oh, they should be sacked. It's like, no, like, I don't think those people believe that now, and if they do, then they got elected in full knowledge that they still have those beliefs. Like, it's a situation where it's easy to condemn particularly youthful behavior. Like, who wants to be judged for what they were when they were a teen? So you could think of some incredibly cringeworthy moments in your own life, and you can think, oh yeah, I don't want that coming up in 30 years, and now everyone on the internet wants me sacked. Like, just because everyone would be unemployed, which might be the case anyway one day.
Yeah, I don't need something I did when I was 16 years old to come back and haunt me, right? But we didn't have internet back then, and we didn't really walk around with video phones either, so none of it's on camera.
Neil was in blackface every day.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. No. No. All right. So, what do you think about this? Do you think that I sort of watch your stuff like fairly regularly, and for the life of me, and I guess I want others to know about this as well, but your opinion on the whole Brexit thing, do you think it's actually going to happen? Or?
Do I think it's going to happen? I mean, if I'm taking a literal, rational perspective,
what if you had money on it?
My money right now is on no deal on March 29th, and the pound plummeting like it did on June 24th. So yeah, to give a bit of background information, the pound initially dropped, I think it was 30% in a day.
Yeah, I remember
and that was 2.5.
The best time to go to England.
Basically.
For us foreigners.
The pound has slightly increased since. So if I did an economics degree.
Yeah.
Bloody trains.
Yeah, so I live like right near one, and fucking things go by
I
all
know.
the time. Yeah,
I know it
sorry
happens
guys.
on your it happens on your channel all the time.
I know. Yeah, it's Thomas. He's
The
Thomas the tanker out there.
the actual circumstances, as far as I understand, around how recessions happen, and you can tell where I'm going with this whole Brexit thing, is there's certain stages within the cycle of the economy. So for those who are just completely ignorant of everything, which might be some people,
Everything.
I'll try and dumb it down. So everything that a particular economy makes within a particular shut up train, Jesus.
Is it really loud for you? Because I can barely hear it here. But
It's really loud.
okay, hang on. I'll see if I can shut the door or the window here.
It doesn't really bother me. It's okay.
It's okay. It's fucking cold out there, and my room's starting to get to a temperature where I'm going to have like little hard nipples pretty soon. So
I'm sure nobody would be complaining.
well, I would be because it chafes.
Apart from you, I think. See, this is what happens. This is what happens when we get together. We can't answer a single question.
I know, because of the fucking train. According to Sassy, it's the love train. Yeah, I wish. I wouldn't be here if that was the love train.
Yeah. What are we talking about? So, Brexit, the economy, and recession. So, when a government is trying to keep track of everything that's good in the economy, they measure GDP. And gross domestic product is how much new stuff is added to the economy and bought over a particular time. So if you have second-hand produce, it doesn't necessarily get added to GDP. So all new houses that are built that and sold, that gets added to the GDP statistic. That's measured every 3 months. If that statistic goes down in that 3 months, then that's considered bad. And if that happens again for 6 consecutive months, then that's declared a recession. And the way in which you analyze certain recessions and cycles is that you get peaks and troughs throughout. And what happens just before a recession is there's a big drop, a small incline, and then a huge drop. And what we've seen is a huge drop, a small incline, and now you realise where I'm going to go with this, because that cliff edge is predicted to be March 29th, and because there's a 6-month stagnation on the statistics, it means that I predict a recession in September, and the statistic I always quote, because I watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver as well, and he came back last weekend. He was quoting a different statistic. He said 9.3%. I've said for ages 8%. So I've been very conservative. But the Conservative government themselves have predicted. Remember, this is the government. These are the people that are delivering Brexit. This isn't me having a little cry. These are the people that are delivering Brexit. They said themselves, if we don't have a deal by March 29th and we crash out of what will be 759 different treaties, all gone overnight, then the economy would drop by 9.3%. Now, bear in mind, there's a whole list of companies that have all come forward in the past few weeks and months that have said they're either moving their HQ to Amsterdam, they're shutting down, I think it's Honda, declared on Monday they were going to shut down an entire factory in Swindon, 3,500 jobs lost.
Wow.
You've got all sorts of different companies. P&O are now moving their jurisdiction to Cyprus, I think it is.
I saw
and a lot
you
of Japanese.
Recently.
Say that again, sorry?
I saw you read a list of companies that have either already or are going to shut down.
Oh, would you like me to find it?
I thought, holy crap, that's a lot of people pulling out. Like,
A lot of big names as well. This is no
Trump's
joke.
father should have done.
Yeah, people think Trump's bad. Trump Trump might not be president by next year. Brexit might be for generations. So just to find this list, so all these different companies, see if you've heard of them, and see how big and influential they are. Sony, Dyson, Panasonic, Lloyd's, Unilever, Unilever make like Marmite and lots of different British food products like Coleman's mustard and whatever. Goldman Sachs, Barclays, Airbus, FlyBMI, who've gone into administration, P&O, which is the cruise liner, HSBC, JP Morgan, UBS, Ford, Hitachi, Toshiba, AXA, Honda, MoneyGram, Philips, European Banking Authority, European Medicines Agency, Bank of America. There's also ones I know from memory have declared since then. There's concerns to do with fresh produce coming out of Sainsbury's and Asda, who are supermarkets. There's also, I think it might be, it might be an AXA actually, but it might be Aviva. I'm not sure. I think it was AXA actually, which is already on the list. But all of those companies have said something along the lines of, this is going to negatively impact us, regardless of what happens. Right. And no deal is the worst possible scenario. And the whole problem is the EU aren't going to renegotiate any other deal. To them, then the deal that they gave Theresa May's deal, is the best that they can possibly offer. So renegotiating will just make it worse. So they're not up for renegotiating anything. Theresa May put that to Parliament, and it was voted down in the biggest defeat in British history, especially in the past 100 years. So we're in deadlock. And there is, as far as I'm aware, I don't know whether it technically constitutes a constitutional crisis, but it's a constitutional crisis, whether we word it that way or not. There's no way that deal's going to get through Parliament. I don't know if you've seen already this week, 11 MPs have quit Labour and the Conservative Party over this. 3 Conservative, 8 Labour, and they've become independents because they can't stand the fact that Theresa May's fucked up her deal. Jeremy Corbyn in opposition won't oppose the deal. He's a Brexiteer, and yet his party had voted for Remain. Their policy is to now, because they didn't get a general election, they should now go for a people's vote and go for rerunning the referendum or having a vote between Theresa May's deal and Remain, for example. Jeremy Corbyn's not up for it. He wants Brexit. And so MPs are now leaving the party. So the interesting thing with that, and I will shut up in a minute, when Theresa May had her general election in 2017, she lost the Conservative majority, which meant that she currently has a minority government that is propped up by the DUP, who she bribed with £1 million in Northern Ireland. Okay, these Irish politics is very confusing anyway, and it's got lots of issues with it. But just put that to one side. Her majority, or rather a minority, has just been cut because MPs are leaving her party. So if another 8 leave to be part of this independent group, she doesn't have a majority government with the DUP anymore. Even with the DUP, she doesn't have majority, and that means we definitely have to have a general election. Now, if 8 MPs from the Conservatives leave before March 29th, that essentially triggers a general election just as we're leaving for no deal. So what does Parliament do? Because they've got all the power at the minute. So do they go ahead with no deal and crash out, and then we go into a general election and it's just chaos? Do we put a stop to it and just Remain, which means that a lot of the majority of Brexiteers are just going to be furious and there's going to be chaos? do we extend Article 50, which we can do, but that means that invokes something Theresa May doesn't want to do, which is extend the deadline past the European elections, which will be later this year. So we would be putting forward MEPs, so members of the European Parliament, for 2 months, and then they'll be out of a job. So that it would essentially cause a problem for her, in that vote in the European Parliament could be seen as a way of protesting Brexit. So let's say a load of UKIP, UK Independence Party people get voted in as of, so I think it's it might be May or it might be June or July. So these elections are going to happen. So let's say the deadline for Article 50 is moved from March 29th to September. Let's make up that date, okay?
Yeah,
what happens if what happens if a load of UK Independence Party UKIP people get voted into the European Parliament? What happens if the Conservatives and UKIP lose that and there's a huge sway towards Remain? How does that influence the deadline? You know, there's so many permutations as to how this could play out. But if you're talking about putting money on it, at the minute, the favourite, and let's face it, the favourite never really wins. not in Britain. We love an underdog. But the money's on no deal and us crashing out. There's a long way around it, but
I see what you mean, for sure. I mean, I hope, I hope this whole thing doesn't affect you guys in a seriously negative way. It's probably going to sting a little bit in the beginning, but pretty sure you'll come out of it as tough as nails as you guys always usually are. Englishman accents are so attractive. Oh, Dave, you got a fan.
Sassy's just being sassy.
She's just being sassy. All right, dude. Well, we're closing in on the hour here. I'm assuming, because you're in many of mine, I'm assuming you're fine with an after party.
Yeah, I can stay up. Yeah, I've got work tomorrow evening, so we're all good.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, well, I can go till about 7 or so. So, my time, which would be like 3 in the morning or something, your time, I think.
I was going to say 7 o'clock my time. It's 1 a.m. now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So a couple more hours, it'll be 3 there. I'm getting good at this whole difference in time from me to you guys, between you and Badger and all the other Englishmen that I speak to, all the other British people. I can fake an accent, Sassy, if that means anything. I can fake many accents, actually, but
there's lots of things that Neil fakes. Yes.
Except the hardest one, I can understand women faking orgasms, but how does a guy do that? How do you do that? I don't think we can. Anyway, I don't know why I went there, but thanks for watching, everybody. This one will be available on Pornhub as well. All right. All right, David, man, thanks for joining me for the hour, man. It's a great conversation. I know we didn't really do anything about deconversion, but we did discuss a little bit about your surroundings and people that might have been believers and how you dealt with it. And a little bit of politics, which is always good, because I was a little bit, I wanted to know a little bit more about your opinion on the whole Brexit thing, other than what I've seen you discuss before. So, dude, it was awesome. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it went quick.
Yeah, I know. They always do. And I'm like, fuck, I should start doing these for 2 hours. But then the problem with that is people see that time when they're skimming through videos and they go, no. And then they go to the one that's like 15 minutes long or whatever, right? Like something from PBS Space Time or one of those guys, which is a great channel. But anyway, Kurzgesagt, I like that one too. They always have a lot of cool shit and great graphics. All right, guys, thanks for watching. As you know, we'll be doing an after party. You guys that are in my chat group know that you'll be able to find the link there if you wish to join David and myself. Anyone who is not in the chat group that would like to join us, you can DM me personally on Twitter. If you are not following me on Twitter, you might be following me on Facebook, and you can send me a message there as well. Other than that, once again, dude, thanks a lot. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And you guys know, as I say at the end of all of these, remember, guys, it's called faith because it's not knowledge.